Hello, my name is Blake Purcell. I am the founder and president of a mission called Hope Russia. We are a church planting and a pastoral training ministry in the former Soviet Union. Myself and Dr. Mike Rasmussen are both teaching elders in the PCA. And what we'd like to do is visit our supporting churches throughout the United States, which is about 50 of those, and then also meet new churches here in the near future in April, May, and then perhaps through the summer if the border to Russia doesn't open. And in traveling to churches, what we're focusing on is the Great Commission post-COVID and helping churches to get involved in the Great Commission, but focusing on how we can empower you to reach your communities for Christ. And one of the activities we'd like to do with you, besides just preaching messages, is to share with you a seminar called Lift Up Your Eyes, Lift Up Your Eyes. And the seminar focuses on 10 steps to help your church go from it being inwardly focused to outwardly focused to reach your community for Christ and have your community reach you in some ways. And what we'll do here is the 10 steps cover 3 areas. The first one is faith. The second one is awareness, and the third one is deployment into the community and the community into us. And that's what I would like to share with you right now. And that's kind of the peak of the peak story of this seminar, Lift Up Your Eyes. Of course, let me go back and say that the Lift Up Your Eyes comes from John chapter 4, where Jesus meets the woman at the well, and she goes and tells the whole Samaritan community about Jesus, and they come and hear from Christ himself. But then the apostles say, "What were you talking to that woman for?" And Jesus says, "Do not say there are 4 months and then comes harvest. I say to you, lift up your eyes and see how the fields are already white for harvest." Right? So Jesus was telling them to lift up their eyes and what they saw was just a woman, and maybe she wasn't even a nice woman at that, as we know from the story. But instead, Jesus says, lift up your eyes. This woman is the harvest field. So we're trying to help folks see the wonderful opportunities God has given all of us to reach our communities for Christ and even lead people to Christ and in this seminar and in our visits, all right? Now, the deployment phase. The deployment phase that we'll be visiting with you about is getting our churches to actually integrate into the community for the sake of the gospel. And what that looked like for us is that Kathy and I moved to the Soviet Union in 1990 with 3 children and a 4th on the way. A perfect time to move to a brutal country, as I say. And that year we studied. I learned fluent cowboy Russian in 1991, and then 1991, toward the end of it, we started a Bible study in our house. And 10 out of about 40 Russian kids came to Christ over about a 2-year period. And then what happened was that group became satisfied with themselves, a 10-person Bible study, and they weren't reaching out to their neighbors for Christ. They weren't used to it. So I began to train them in doing small group Bible studies, and we called them investigative Bible studies for non-Christians. And Andre and Zhenya, two of the students in our Bible study that actually married each other, they started a Bible study in their home. And no Russian would come to the Bible study except one Russian named Anya. We met her in 97 as we were leaving with our then 6 children. We had a going away party, and Anya was there. I met her. And then we left. I got ordained in the PCA and came back as a missionary from the PCA, Mississippi Valley. And Anya, we met her again in 1999 when we came back. And sure enough, she had been to America, had a $100,000 series of operations done for free on her spinal cord. She was very severely handicapped, had a deformed spine, and could barely breathe before the operations. And after the operation, she had a normal life expectancy. And then in about 2002, 2003, she decided that God was calling her to start Russia's first ever Christian camp for handicapped kids. And she named the camp Babushka, which means butterfly. Not babushka, that's grandmother, but babushka, butterfly. My two of my children, of our 6 children, Emily and Lewis, got invited to the second camp to be actually work in the kitchen. And so the camp started growing, and by about 2007 or 8, Kathy and I were asked to be chaplains in the camp. And you'll see a picture of me dancing with Anya. At every camp they have a ball, and you can see that there. And we began to be chaplains because we would relate to the non-Christian parents that came to the camp in the summer times. By this time, there were about 25 kids and 75 helper and parents. So it was 100 people at the camp, 1 week every summer. And through this experience, it was so wonderful when Jesus says, as you've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. People literally were experiencing Christ as you ministered to those that were, literally, physically anyway, the weaker brethren. I thought this was such a wonderful blessing in our lives that I got my pastor. I was handing our church over by 2010 and 11. I was handing our church over to a Russian pastor, and I got him involved. Then one of our elders got involved. And then by 2016, about 5 of our young people in our church had become camp counselors and helpers. What happened was it transformed our church. Our church was ingrown, just like the NAV group had been ingrown 10 or 15 years earlier. Our church had become ingrown. And now what's happened is they deployed themselves into the community of Babichka, and now the community has deployed itself back in the church. So you'll see this next picture you can see is Sergey, one of our best friends in the camp, a severely handicapped person who cannot even speak. He comes to the church semi-regularly, and then his brother came to Christ through the camp and now has joined our church, has married a wife there, and they have 2 kids that have been baptized in the church that we planted in St. Petersburg. And it has changed the very nature of our church. We went from being sort of only a doctrinally oriented church to a church that's rich in doctrine, but rich in love and care for the community. And the community, literally, we deployed into the community. It took about 6 years for this to happen. And then the community has deployed back into us. And so many of the people now, a number of the people now that have joined our church came to us because we were ministering in Camp Babichka. It's been a wonderful experience. And that is one of the stories I'll be sharing in the deployment phase of the seminar, Lift Up Your Eyes. In 1 Corinthians 9:23, it says, well, I'd say 24 first. Paul says, so run the race. Well, what is the race? He says beforehand, I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. I do this all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. And what we see there is God wants us to run the race by becoming all things to all men, that we might by all means save some. And the only way that can really happen is by being deployed into the community, and then the community being deployed into us by God's grace. And what happens is we share in the blessings of the gospel. So what we would like to bring to you is a deeper, richer presence of Christ in your church by participating in the blessings of the gospel. So may God bless you, and I hope to get to meet you.